Chapter 36. Front. It was gone 1 a.m. when James got home, but he lay awake, feeling on edge and asking himself the same questions over and over. Could he trust Bruce not to spill the beans on campus? Could Sasha possibly find out? And Dana? You don't always realize that you're taking someone for granted until you risk losing them. James had never told Dana that he loved her, but realized now that he did. She was hilariously funny, and he adored the way she ambled up in scruffy clothes, not caring what people thought about her. Dana managed to be sexy without spending hours plastering makeup over her face, and the fact it was all so effortless somehow made it better. But the weird thing about being 15, or maybe just the weird thing about being male, was that at the same time as James felt terrible about cheating on his girlfriend, he couldn't help wondering if he'd ever get another chance with Lois. She wasn't the most amazing person in the world, but she had a great body, and he quite fancied trying out sex again when he wasn't numb with shock. In the end, James abandoned sleep. He pulled a tiny crack in the curtain on his side of the room and opened a cheesy paperback biography of a motorcycle champion that had been stuck on the front cover of his latest motorbike magazine. James was no connoisseur of literature, but it took him all of 5 pages to work out that it was a pile of crap, and he was back to thinking about Lois in the bath when his mobile rang. It was 5:57 when he saw wheels flashing on the display. "Hey mate," James said. The ring had woken Bruce, who sat up rubbing his eyes. James practically swallowed his tongue when he didn't hear Wheels' voice. "All right," Sasha said. "Feeling fit?" "Yeah," James gulped. He kept hearing "I just shagged your daughter" in his head. "Sorry about the ungodly hour, James, but I just had a call from a mate of mine. We're heading over to the Rudge estate to take care of that bit of business we've been planning." "Right," James nodded. "I wasn't going to bring you in on this bit, but I've got a couple of my lads dealing with some other business, and this has to happen within the next few hours. Besides, I've really come to appreciate your loyalty, coming out for training when others have turned their backs." As soon as Sasha mentioned loyalty, James worried if he somehow knew what he'd been up to with Lois. "Thanks," he said weakly. "It's not going to be a picnic, but if you're up for it, I can get a car along for you and your cousin in 15 minutes. I'll give you $1,000 apiece. And I'm a fair man, so I'll cut you in if we do well." "I guess," James said, still nervous about Lois. "I mean, sure. We'll get suited and booted. Wheels reckons you've both got body armor and a couple of titchy handguns. Is that true?" "Yeah," James said. "Where'd you get hold of them?" Sasha asked curiously. "Guys we did a couple of jobs for in Scotland. He couldn't pay us, but he had a ton of dodgy weapons and some Kevlar suits ripped off from an army base." "What about ammunition?" "A clip," James said. "Same for Bruce, I think." "Right," Sasha said. "Wear your armor and bring the guns, but I might have to upgrade your firepower. I want you down on the doorstep when I arrive, or I'll be pissed off." "No worries, Sasha," James said. He realized how tense he'd been as he put his phone down and saw its shape marked out in his palm where he'd been clutching it tight. Bruce was sitting on the edge of his bed, trying to catch the conversation. "Are we on for something?" he asked eagerly. James shrugged and rubbed his fingers through his sweaty hair. He says it's going down at the hard front. But don't you think it's just a bit weird that he happens to call me tonight? Bruce grinned. What, because of your little bath time adventure? Well, what else? James snapped. I heard him ask about guns and body armor. Bruce pointed out. You're being paranoid. This room isn't secure. If he wanted your gonads on a platter, he would have burst in and grabbed you right out of bed. Guess you're right, James said uncertainly, as he walked to his locker and started grabbing some clothes. But he specifically mentioned loyalty. James decided on a baggy polo shirt that would stretch over his body armor as well as his nanotube reinforced jacket. Sounds like he's expecting serious gunplay, Bruce said, as he stood beside James grabbing stuff out of the next locker. You'd better wear the leg armor too. I hate that stuff, James said. He'd never worn the lightweight leg armor, which covered his bum and the upper section of his legs with a series of cream-coloured Kevlar plates that made him look like an Imperial stormtrooper out of a Star Wars movie. Leg armor is much less common than the chest protection that every serious villain wears nowadays, but it wasn't out of place because serious young criminals and wannabe drug dealers regard 1,000 quid's worth of body armor as a status symbol to go along with their first watch, mobile phone, and the weapon they tuck inside their designer jeans. I know it makes your ass itch, Bruce said, as he pulled his armor up his legs and began tightening a series of Velcro straps. But there's plenty of places where I don't want to get shot, and this covers several of them. James felt almost obscenely butch as he led Bruce out of the room, with the armor bulking out of his clothes, a gun strapped to his leg, and a knife tucked inside his Timberland boot. He'd worn similar levels of equipment on training exercises, but never on the streets. We'd better let Chloe know what's occurring, Bruce said, dialing her number as they ambled down the stairs, ahead of schedule, but with less than 4 hours sleep to their names. There was a new staff member on the zoo reception desk, and she was still green enough to try enforcing the rule that you had to sign the book if you came in or out between midnight and 7 a.m. There you go, James said, handing back the biro and clipboard as Bruce headed through a door with its shattered glass panels boarded up. The sun was coming up, and the sky was a mix of purple and orange. What did Chloe say? James asked. Not much, Bruce shrugged. She said to be careful, and if it gets dangerous, we save our asses first and worry about our cover later. Oh, and she's been on the blow of the liaison at the police station. Apparently the counsellor Sasha stomped has got a dozen broken bones, including a fractured skull. But he's not telling anyone how it happened. Poor guy didn't have a hope, James said, shaking his head. Sasha's a complete animal. I've heard that his daughter's a bit of a tiger too. Bruce smirked. After all the fuss to dress and get downstairs quickly, their ride was a quarter of an hour late, and the wait was made uncomfortable by a cop car slowing down to check them out. Sasha's gone on ahead, Wheels said, as he pulled up in his Astra, which was now sprayed black. Get in the back. There's gloves, masks, and guns for each of you in the gym bag. I'll show you how to use them when we get to the flat. James and Bruce climbed in the car, and Wheels pulled away almost before they slammed the doors. Bruce opened the drawstring on an orange Nike gym bag, revealing 2 Glock 9 machine pistols. Glocks were amongst the most powerful handguns available. They were rarely seen out of the hands of special forces and close protection officers, and were virtually unheard of amongst British criminals. The two agents exchanged worried looks. The Glocks could fire 20 rounds in a few seconds, and in a kill or be killed situation, the boys might not have any choice about pulling the trigger. Fully automatic, really nice guns, Wheels said. But ammo's rarer than pink dog turds in this town, so you'd better not fire them without good reason. So what's going down? James asked. Sasha didn't tell us much on the phone. I don't know all the details myself, Wheels said. Sasha's a master of planning this kind of thing, and I pretty much go along with what he says. The only thing I know is that there's a meeting set up and a major drug deal is going down involving the Slasher boys. Cool, James said. He'd been surveying the flat for close to 3 weeks, and he knew that most of the dealers who lived and worked in the hard front looked West Indian. But this was the first time he'd heard confirmation that they were linked to Major D's crew. Sasha, Savis, and a black dude were waiting at the flat. James grinned when he recognised Kelvin Holmes standing in the middle of the living room. Kelvin had recruited James into Keith Moore's organisation 3 years earlier. The mission had resulted in Kelvin getting a 3-year prison sentence, but fortunately he had no clue that James was responsible. Blast from the past, Kelvin said affectionately when he saw James. You've got big. I hear you've been up north. Kelvin was scarily muscular, but he looked pretty lame in navy slacks and a short-sleeved shirt with a Royal Mail logo over the breast pocket. You're working for the post office now? James asked. One day only, Kelvin grinned as he pointed towards a large Amazon.co.uk parcel resting against the wall. Special delivery.